Hello and welcome. This is Michael Beach, and you are dialed into the What Are You Doing podcast. This is the show for thought leaders who are investing in the next generation of leadership for their organization. This is also the show for emerging leaders who want to become that next generation of great leaders. If every one of us tries to capture all of the untapped potential in ourselves and in everyone around us, we'll make a difference in our world. All of us at Michael Beach Coaching and Consulting are excited to be able to bring you another podcast episode today. I'm especially excited today to have the opportunity to introduce you to today's special guest and extraordinary emerging leader, Kailynn Lambert, the Director of Sales Operations and Marketing for Davenport Group, one of the fastest growing IT solution providers in the United States. And Kailynn is a winner of a great number of awards from organizations like Channel Company, and her company is winning a great number of awards from Inc. magazine, the Channel Company, and many others. You know how they say young men are oftentimes young lions? Well, Kailynn is a young lioness, having been promoted from an entry-level position to her current role as a director before she even became 30 years of age. She's on a wonderful growth trajectory, and recently she won her company's prestigious Lucas Award for 2021, as well as having recently been named a Channel Company 2020 Next Generation Solution Provider Leader back in November or December. Wow, you have been winning awards left and right, Kailynn. You're on a fast track, let me tell you. It's such a pleasure to have you here today to talk to our listeners about your unique leadership journey. Welcome to the program.
Well, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you with us today, Kailynn. Shall we begin?
I would love to.
Awesome. At what point in your life or in your career did you become interested in leadership, Kailynn?
I'd say about 5 years ago, I approached my manager at the time about expanding my roles and responsibilities. I had always known, with a background in coaching, that I'd like to have a more active role in leadership and hoping to make a bigger impact, not just today and on every day, but with those around me. So from there, I've been grateful for the opportunity that my organization offered some business and leadership coaching, as well as the ability to observe other members of our staff internally as part of our senior leadership team.
Wow, what a great opportunity. You mentioned you had a background in coaching. Were you an athletics coach?
I was. So I had spent about 10 years coaching junior Olympic volleyball. So it was a passion of mine growing up. And then I realized very early on in my college career that was something I wanted to do to give back to the youth in my community.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. Kailynn, did you have any leadership mentors along the way who made a big impression upon you or perhaps made a big investment in you?
I do. I'm honored at this point to have many leadership mentors. I think it's important not to always pick the individuals who are most like you, but those who aren't. I've learned the most from the challenge of viewing things objectively from that perspective that I wouldn't otherwise consider. So I'm super fortunate to work so closely with my own CEO, Sonia St. Charles, who's made the biggest impact and investment on me, not only on a daily basis, but over the last couple of years. In fact, if you think about the ratio of women in the IT industry, it continues to rise, but to have the ability to learn firsthand in everyday conversations and opportunities from her specifically is invaluable. So aside from her continued support and leadership on a day-to-day basis, she has also approved Davenport Group to fully fund my and many of my colleagues' business coaching opportunities as well.
You're a very fortunate person indeed to have the opportunity to work with Sonia. She was a guest on our show previously, and she's one heck of a leader, to say the very least. Do you expect that you will likewise become involved in developing leaders as Sonia has done with so many at Davenport Group, Kailynn?
I joined Davenport Group, it's going on 8 years ago. And as we've continued to grow over the last few years at that rapid rate, I've quickly become a veteran of the team. And thanks in part for those opportunities and my background, I've worked very, very closely with many of our leaders and believe very strongly that Sonia believes and Davenport Group believes that the best way to develop leaders is to share our knowledge and through mentorship. And that's just what we do. So I have no doubt that that's her intention, is to provide opportunities for all of us to continue to develop those around us.
That sounds absolutely terrific. Kailynn, can you tell our listeners about what you're doing to raise the level of your leadership game these days? What are you working on now?
So I do my best to stay in tune with my environment. As we're all aware, there's always something going on. So staying aware of the ongoing challenges of others and what they may be facing provides me an opportunity to not just connect with them, but to adjust, and allows us to achieve more. In my vision, leadership is all about continuing to learn. So one of the greatest ways that I'm raising my level is by teaching and mentoring those around me, and in turn, educating myself. I recently doubled the size of my team, and so I've been focusing on doing my best, not only to get to know each of them as individuals, but mentoring them and leading them on a daily basis so that they can achieve the best that they can.
Wonderful. Sounds like a fantastic approach. What's the accomplishment along the way that has given you the greatest sense of pride?
It's funny, when you ask this question, I have to think for a minute, and it's not because I'm debating my answer, but it's because it could be so many things. But being a working mother, I'm proud every day of the ability to have a career and raise my children, not just every day, because let me tell you, it's not easy. In fact, the 2-year-old and one on the way, there are far more days that are more difficult than easy. I hope that I can set an example for my children and for others, that they feel accomplished and secure in the knowledge that they are doing their best every day, just like I am. And I owe a lot of where I am today to the help and support of a huge network, a great organization, and lots of great mentors that make it all possible.
That's an amazing accomplishment, and I understand why that would make you feel so proud. Congratulations on the one on the way, as you called it.
Thank you.
Kailynn, you've been through a lot of coaching, as you mentioned, to help you to develop your leadership abilities. Was there a lesson along the way that really resonated with you that you'd like to share with our loyal tribe of emerging leaders that listen to the program?
Happy to. I've been fortunate to have that opportunity for the coaching and the leadership development and to have all of that training. But one of the biggest lessons that resonated for me would be understanding other individuals and departments' priorities and objectives. What may be a priority for me is unlikely to hold that same value for someone else. And without additional details or background or the transparency of what's required or needed of them, they're not able to reprioritize their role or expectations. And in response, can often lead to a lot of stress, disconnect, and misunderstanding. So instead of requesting their participation, I try my best to provide as much useful and meaningful background information as possible, giving them the opportunity to help me better understand and set level expectations for everyone, creating a timeline so that everyone is able to be on the same page and hopefully avoid a lot of those stressful responses or delays.
That is indeed a nugget of gold right there, right? Listening to others and understanding that perhaps their priorities might not be the same as yours.
They never really are they?
Well, they oftentimes do not match. And I love the idea that you're going to give them a chance to explain their priorities to you, and that you in return are going to try to explain your priorities to them and the reasons behind it. Because it seems to me that approach might lead to a lot less conflict, a lot more cooperative collaboration, and in the long run, probably much greater results. What a wonderful nugget of gold. I hope you were listening out there, emerging leaders. Kailynn, would you share with our listeners the greatest leadership advice that anyone has ever given you?
I'd be happy to. I think overall, advice for me is very personal. I don't know that it's easy to say one is the greatest thing that I've ever heard, but I do have one that I think is the most inspirational for me. And so a good leader inspires people to have the confidence in a leader. A great leader inspires people to have the confidence in themselves. And this was from Eleanor Roosevelt. So a woman, in my opinion, who was way ahead of her times in understanding that leadership is more than just about you. It's about everyone else around you.
She was absolutely an extraordinary leader. And to be the wife of a president of the United States, and to have that opportunity to mingle with all those very powerful, influential people, I have to believe she had a lot of influence from her position as First Lady. Fascinating, fascinating woman. Sometimes I ask my guests to share with us a 60-second leadership lesson. You mentioned that you had a lesson that you'd be willing to share with our listeners. Can you walk us through it, Kailynn?
I realized over the last couple of years that the vast majority of people's intentions are not malicious. So when approached with an issue, it's always best to prioritize transparency, communication, and empathy. I think the big key here is understanding what they know, adding value to the conversation by over-communicating, but responding by recognizing their perspective and having a clear direction. It's important to build that trust by keeping those things in perspective, and truly helps build your relationships as colleagues, but helps create that natural leadership ability as well.
What a nice common sense approach. I would imagine that it's worked very well for you over the years.
So far, it hasn't let me down.
Let's hope it continues to deliver for you. Well, we're going to take a short break for a word from our sponsor, and then we'll be right back with Kailynn Lambert, the Director of Sales Operations and Marketing for Davenport Group. Hello, this is Michael Beach with Michael Beach Coaching and Consulting. I want to tell you today about lots of free things that we can provide for you at no cost that are going to be incredibly valuable. If you're an aspiring leader or you want to learn more about developing leadership within your organization, you can follow us on LinkedIn. We put blogs out monthly, posts out almost daily. We have a YouTube channel, Michael Beach Coaching and Consulting, that has a series of videos on leadership and accountability and many others. Of course, you can subscribe to this podcast. In addition, you can send us a message at info@michaelbeachcoach.com, and we'll be happy to sign you up for our monthly newsletter, where we always include free tools for everyone who signs up for the newsletter, and we tell you what's going on at our company. Again, this is Michael with michaelbeachcoach.com, and we are looking forward to you signing up and subscribing to our blog, our video, our podcast, or our newsletter. Thanks. All right, we're back. And best of all, we're talking with Kailynn Lambert, an amazing emerging leader and a working mother who is doing terrific work for a fast growth IT solutions provider, Davenport Group. Kailynn, how much of a value should an aspiring emerging leader like yourself place upon emotional intelligence when they are recruiting or developing strong leaders for their organization?
I think it's very important to highly value the emotional intelligence when you're going through recruiting and developing strong leaders. At Davenport Group specifically, we value that very, very highly. We use emotional intelligence among other metrics in all of our recruiting and development efforts of great leaders, but great employees. And we do our best to support the efforts of everyone, whether they're veteran employees, new employees, recruits, to have an impact not only on their roles, but on their careers long term. And in doing so, we create that cohesive balance of teams and a drive that creates not just success, but overall job satisfaction.
Sounds fantastic. I'm a big believer that emotional intelligence is of vital importance to anybody who wants to have influence with other people. And I've learned over the years that when you work at your emotional intelligence, it is often completely within your control to grow your emotional intelligence and your emotional maturity steadily over a period of time. Can you tell our audience, Kailynn, some of the key things that you teach new people joining your organization, people you're grooming as emerging leaders, as you're trying to get them involved in management and leadership?
We do a lot with leadership and about supporting and empowering our teams to do their work. We share information openly, encourage the solution mindset, and cultivate an environment to learn and to grow. These skills take time to develop, and each leader is constantly mentoring or other emerging leaders or other employees alike. And there's no right answer and no one method that seems to be the best fit. And in doing that, we can adjust, which in turn gives everyone the opportunity to grow and to become a leader in a way that is best fit for them. And that's really what leadership is all about.
Amen. I think that's well said. Well, my final question for you, Kailynn. You are obviously well on your way to becoming a tremendous leader. I'd be interested in hearing about investments you've made to become a great leader yourself. Would you reveal for our listeners and our audience what is perhaps the best single leadership development investment that you've ever made in yourself?
I believe the single best development investment I've made is to never settle. I don't settle in learning, growing, or expanding my abilities to be better every day. I think the key is finding an environment in an organization that values you and your strengths, while also encouraging you to grow and providing you the tools and resources to build upon it.
Well, that makes perfect sense. So if I understand you correctly, you've decided to never settle for the status quo. Rather, you've decided to keep learning, to keep growing, and to continue expanding your abilities day after day after day. That's pretty inspiring. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Well, Kailynn, my friend, thank you so much for making time in your busy week to join us for this terrific conversation about leadership and development. I know our listening emerging leaders have enjoyed hearing about leadership and management from someone like yourself, who is far closer to the beginning of your career rather than the end of your career like me. It's very inspirational to see how you've picked up the ball and run with it, Kailynn. I wish you great success, and please keep up the good work. Well, that's our episode for today, leaders. We want to thank our special guest, Kailynn Lambert, the Director of Sales Operations and Marketing for Davenport Group, a company that provides real-world IT solutions to customers all over the United States. Thanks, Kailynn, for sharing your experiences with our listeners. I know they will learn a lot from today's episode. Our next episode will be released in a few days, and we promise another intriguing guest who will share their leadership best practices with you and contribute to your greater success. Thank you, listeners, for joining us, and please reach out to us at info@michaelbeachcoach.com and give us some feedback about how you liked today's episode or about how you feel about our podcast in general. We absolutely want to hear from you, and we'd love to have the chance to listen to your feedback about how we can make our podcast even more valuable for you. We'll look forward to spending our next episode together with you. Until then, remember, there's an awful lot of people who need help in this world, and they are counting on you to be at your best and to help them to learn to constantly be at their best. If we all expect the best from one another and we all deliver that constantly, consistently, we can change the world together for the better. See you next time.